Greetings and welcome back. Hope you're good. Identification. Now, this is quite an interesting topic. As you already know, with recent development in society, you often come across this question of who do you identify as or what do you identify as? And I'll tell you just to chill for a minute because we ain't heading in that direction. But my interest in this topic, and in my case, how I would take the question as it is, I would answer it in the context of who am I, or what I do, or what one does, or what they label themselves as. So, in my case, I identify as a writer or a poet/poet. Yeah, somewhere in those lines. And we can go as far as talking about my social grouping, of which by now you know. If you're not new, but if you are, I am an introverted extrovert. So for the meantime, yeah, to get your focus back, let's focus on the writing part. Okay, sorry if I might seem to be looking this side and that. It's because I scripted this, so I didn't memorize it. So it's just so that I don't forget what I'm saying and I don't waste much of your time as I always do. Anyways, let me get your attention back. So for the meantime, let's talk about the writing part and why I feel to fully acknowledge myself as a poet. So you see, in this field of writing, everyone else is doing their own thing, like their own style of writing, their own flow, something like that. Yeah. So it has always been hard for me to categorize myself, like for me, in the sense that I've always been doing prose writing for the long time, whereby I just pick up a pen and jot down what's in my head and what I feel sounds right and sensible. But then if you go and see other people's writings, it's something different. And nowadays, it's even really hard to tell whether what you're reading is poetry, or it's just someone else's thoughts or quotes. Because there's so many pages online nowadays, like daily posts, you have lines of words there. When reading, well, according to the dictionary, meaning in the lines of the dictionary, meaning of which I don't know because I didn't visit the dictionary, but you find that those also fall in the lines of poetry. But back to my case, because of that, I've always found it hard to see if my writing has fallen in the line of poetry or not, because I'm just writing. Yeah, so it's only until recently I realized that anything can indeed be poetry. Now, wait, don't get me wrong. Not everything, literally, but yes, in case you plan on coming at me like, bro, something like that. And especially when it comes to spoken word, I've also realized that most of the spoken word poems are actually stories and the poets are actually storytelling, something in those lines. Because I sit down and I listen and be like, yeah, this sounds good. Yeah, this is well packed, this is well arranged. It's mostly storytelling, it's a story, but then you give it a nice tone, a nice flow to it, and you express your emotions. You're in it. That's what makes it, And I think that's also given me a different look at what poetry is. So, when it comes to when we come to Malawi, yeah, when you mention poetry, you always have this name Q Malawezi popping up. Yeah. And I've always been questioning who's this Q Malawezi guy? Who's this Q Malawezi guy? I've never really known him because I haven't really put myself in the poetry industry. I'm just there writing, and yeah, we already covered this topic in the introduction, so no need. Yeah. So I was coming like, Q Malawezi, who's this guy? So lately, like last week, I was like, okay, let me check this guy out. Yeah. Let me see what he has and what makes him such a big guy in the poetry sector. Let me listen. Maybe I can get a feel of what poetry really is, and I can grade myself and see if what I'm doing is really poetry or not, or it's just prose writing as I do. Yeah. So I listened to one of his old collections. I was like, yeah, this is nice. But I also picked up another thing which I also talked about, the storytelling part. Most of which it was like storytelling, it was like he was narrating something, but then, in a good manner, like you put in words, sharp words, you mix them together, make something pop, something bang. Yeah. And with the tone, it really catches your attention to be like, yeah, this is what I'm talking about. I think over time, it's also a concept of there is so much richness in spoken word than in written poetry. Because like even for writers, I think most writers, if you're a writer who is watching or a poet, you can agree with me, or anyone else can agree with me that when it comes to reading other people's poems, yeah, you usually put your own tone in it. Yeah, and sometimes you fail to read it straight, you be like, this doesn't sound right. Yeah, because you're putting it in your tone and you're letting it flow how you think it should flow. Yeah. It's only until you hear it from the one who wrote it to be like, oh yeah, this is actually nice. Oh, okay, yeah, this is, yeah. You see, that's how complicated this stuff is. Enough of the long story, yeah? Back to the case of identification based on social grouping, yeah? I won't even bother exhausting much on this case because somehow it's straightforward. But I really think it's a great thing to know on where you belong, which grouping you belong to, either an extrovert, introvert, ambivert. I don't know if there's anything else apart from these three. Ambivert is an introverted extrovert. Oh, there's also an extroverted introvert. Yeah. I really think it's great knowing where you stand in these lines, but it's also okay if you don't. There's still time to discover yourself, what you like, what you don't like, what you're comfortable with. But it's also okay to end up changing over time. Like, it's not like you wake up and then choose, okay, today I'll be this. No, it's something you just notice. It's also okay to realize that you've shifted from a certain grouping to another one over time, like I did. I was an extrovert full time, I was everywhere. Then, yeah. So it's all based on experiences as well. And I think change in interest over time. So I'll leave that there. So now, since we've talked about social grouping, we've talked about poetry, yeah. And since you've made it this far, thank you for sticking in. Since you've made it this far, let me give you a piece, yeah, which I also had talked about. My very first official poem. This one I wrote in mind, with poetry in mind, like with how people write poems in mind, something like that. So it was more of a tryout of my style of writing and also mixed with how I think poems go or how they should be. So you be the judge to, you be the judge, be the judges of my trial. But yes, you'll be my second audience to hear this. I've performed this only once on stage and that was it. So those who weren't there have never heard of it. Some people have read it, but yeah. So enjoy. Yeah, enjoy. The poem is titled Introverted Extrovert. Let's get to it. Stuck in between two social groupings. Quite interesting how one ends up in such a position. Taking down the thought of having human interaction as a must, and I must say that easy became a tradition. Getting to source energy and having to break it down into durations of where they source from. Controversial to common belief, but socializing does drain and give me energy at the same time. And to answer your question, you're right. It was never like this from the start. Never had I thought or planned of my current situation. But here I am. Here we are, all gathered to hear a story you're never really part of. But I guess that's the interesting part. Well, sort of. My voice is shaking, but maybe not entirely verbally. I plead to you that you wholeheartedly understand me because I'm doing something I never truly thought of. Yes, I'm as surprised as you are. To cut the story short, I'm an introverted extrovert. Maybe one day I'll get to erase all the social awkwardness that has since emerged. Well, you'd be amazed to see me up front uttering a voice that has for long been caged and beating up the tips of my voice box with all its rage, the rage that had been built up because I never wanted out to the world. Isn't that cruel? I guess I'm cute of all charges then. I've been planning and contemplating on placing myself on a stage to give out all that I've hidden. But the question remains when. When am I really going to man up and face the crowd, look them eye to eye with all the fear that I have inside and still choose to sit back and fantasize? I guess I'm in a loop, which is soon to be broken, but I don't see that happening if I still choose to be a mute. It's a dream to let things loose so that my voice could have a new audience, and that's you. Isn't that cute? Well, I guess if you're hearing this, I beat up all my fears that have been blocking me from me to you, and I'm just happy that my time to speak is due. Well. That's a piece from wonderful Shammah. Yeah, I hope you like it. Let me know. It's that sort of thing whereby every time I go somewhere where there's poetry, you always hear these snaps in the background when someone is performing, and to date I've always been questioning myself, what does this actually mean? And it's a global thing actually. I think it has a meaning in poetry. I'm still yet to find out. Please let me know if you know in the background. But yeah, I'll do it for myself because that also took my energy. Like, bro, yo. But yeah, that's done for it. That's I guess you are my second audience and my forever long time audience. All right, so yeah, let me know. I actually might be doing this in the next episodes. Let me know if you'd be interested. I might actually start a poetic series. So instead of talking to you as how I usually do it, I might be adding in bits and bits of poetry inside. I know I tease a lot, but yeah, I'm actually as long as I get it right. It's been long. As long as I get it right, which I should, but I'll deliver. If I say I deliver, I'll deliver. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you for making it this far. See you in the next one.